I am honored to serve you in my new role as Assistant Superintendent for Community Partnerships and Wellbeing. I look forward to working closely with you, with our students, our families, and our community in this district capacity. This morning, you will listen to the stories of 14 former and current students of the Shrewsbury Public Schools. They will share experiences they have had in our schools, many of which strengthened their skills, knowledge, and understanding of themselves and the world around them. Perhaps more importantly, they will identify areas of challenge and offer suggestions for improvement as we continually strive to strengthen our professional practice to best meet the needs of all learners. I am very grateful to each of these incredible individuals for accepting this invitation. I believe there is nothing more powerful than listening and learning from our students. I would like to thank our school committee members for being here this morning, Sandy Fritz, our chair, John Wensky, the vice chair, Dr. Dale McGee, secretary, Jason Palich, and our newest member, Lindsay Heffernan. I would also like to thank Jim DuPont and Lisa Robb for being here from the Shrewsbury Federal Credit Union, and to Jim Coughlin, who is representing the 1540 Connection. At this time, we will begin our program viewing a video of Ruby Lee, class of 2009, who is unable to be with us this morning as she lives and works in California, but wanted to share her words with us.
Hi everyone, and thank you for having me today. I wish I could be there in person. My name is Ruby Lee, and I graduated from Shrewsbury High School in 2009. Currently, I live in San Francisco, and I run a company called Junie Learning. We teach computer programming to kids online. We're an online academy that hires instructors from top universities, and we build software and curriculum for our students in-house. I've been in the technology industry since graduating college, and I give a lot of credit to where I am today to my own education in Shrewsbury. There's actually some other Shrewsbury alumni involved in Junie whose names some of you might recognize. Samran Sharma from the class of 2008 is an engineer with us. Ajay Desikan from my year runs a company that helps us with marketing and advertising. And there's actually a small contingent of Shrewsbury alums living in San Francisco. Linky Wang, Kurt Harrington, Linda Chen, to name a few. We actually had a mini reunion event last year for all of us, and we all really like to reminisce about our time in Shrewsbury. So personally, I moved to Shrewsbury in 1998 as a second grader at Floral Street School. I think that might have been the first year that Dr. Sawyer was the principal there. And I lived right behind the school, and I was a rear path walker. And throughout middle school and high school, I became very interested in mathematics and science. Some of the classes that I later took in high school, like AP Calculus with Mrs. Pryor, AP Statistics with Mrs. Busso, Chemistry with Dr. Labrie, they were honestly better taught than a lot of the courses I took at Stanford, and they really laid the foundation for me to study engineering. I was also really fortunate to be a peer tutor, particularly in Mrs. Moisen and Mrs. Fair's classrooms, and I think those experiences helped spark my own interest in education and teaching. I'm also super thankful for the teachers who put time into leading extracurriculars like math team and wind ensemble and the spring musical, which were wonderful for many reasons, but one primary one being that they introduced me to students who were outside of our school district with similar interests to me, and I'm still loosely connected with some of them today. So Dr. Lazat asked us to speak about our perspective on what would continue to strengthen the student experience here at Shrewsbury. And the thing that stands out in my mind that I want to talk about is mentorship. So mentorship is sometimes used as a formal word, but what I mean when I say mentorship is that I remember as a student just having somebody a few years older than you who you could aspire to be like but still really relate to was really motivating and reassuring in a way. I remember being in 8th grade, being a clarinet player, and meeting a girl at the high school who was one of the best clarinet players in the state. I got to sit in a practice room with her and just talk about which music programs she was in and just her general path over the last few years. It opened my eyes to something I could aspire to, and at the same time, it made it feel more possible in a way because she was somebody who I could relate to. So I really believe that it can give any student a boost of confidence to know that there's somebody like them out there, maybe a few years older, who shares the same interests and can talk to you at your level. It can be between like a 5th grader who loves anime and soccer and a 7th grader who loves anime and soccer, or a freshman who's not sure how to approach a particular class and a senior who's already had that experience. From what I can remember, these types of connections start forming in high school when you can meet people in other grades through sports or clubs. But perhaps there's more we can do to facilitate this type of mentorship. And at an earlier grade level, teachers are in the best spot to facilitate these types of connections because you see different students year to year and you know their personalities and where they could excel and where they could use a little bit of help. Personally, people ask me all the time, is it hard being a woman in technology? Is it different being a female founder? And honestly, it doesn't feel that hard or that different because in my circle, there's other people like me who are perhaps a little bit earlier, a little bit more experienced in their career, and I can lean on them. And if there's somebody like me who I know who's done what I'm trying to do before, then what I'm trying to do just seems a little bit less daunting and it makes me feel more empowered. So I will just wrap up by thanking all of you for the work that you do in supporting your students. And thank you for having me today, and feel free to get in touch with me if I can ever be helpful. And best of luck in the upcoming school year.
Thank you. At this time, I invite Jim Heel to the podium.
Thanks. That's my twin brother up there on that screen. He's much more handsome. Jane Lazard didn't invite me here. She told me I would come. And when I had dinner last night at El Basher, I got a sneak peek about the program, and then I said, she's playing a really cruel joke. Because these kids over here, some of them weren't even born when I was graduating in 1989. So then I said, well, how long do I have? She said 3 to 5 minutes. I said, well, that's like a eulogy at a funeral. I said, but there's no dead body. And Jane immediately kicks back. She says, well, make it about you, Jim. So I've got 5 minutes about me this morning, but it isn't. I do have notes. My name is Jim Heald, and not to be confused, I have an identical twin brother, John, and graduates of the Shrewsbury school system, and I remember years at Beale School when we looked so alike that we could switch classes and go the entire day without the teachers knowing, Mrs. Dami and Mrs. Pearson, and there were a few inside friends that were along with us for the ride when we switched that class and then would laugh at the end of the day. We still look very much alike, but I tell everyone the differentiating factors is that John has a wedding band, I have glasses, and I have a smile. But my brother John married up. He married a wonderful girl from the South Shore, and they raised their two of my favorite nieces here in Shrewsbury at Sherwood and Oak. So it's a good thing. Let's see, okay. We're blessed to come from such a rich, rich community. And we have collectively gathered here this morning and enjoy a wonderful reputation in the Shrewsbury school system, not only in Shrewsbury, in Worcester County, and in the state, but I'm convinced even further beyond that. We're blessed because of the teachers, administrators of this school system, whom you have been able to attract and, more importantly, retain. Each of you in your various roles, from teacher to administrator to janitorial services and kitchen aides, make and shape the differences in each of these young children's lives. Don't ever underestimate the impact that you're making in the lives of so many individuals. My teachers, Mrs. Dami, Mrs. Pearson, Miss Farina, who was my favorite. Donna Simone, Dan Hassett, Henry Sullivan, Sue Steiner, Ken Largess, Joe Monicavo, Mrs. Bergstrom, who was Ken Largess' secretary, Ralph Zona, R.D. Gow, Bill Kevel, Chuck Danielson. The list is endless, but the fact that I can stand here and rattle off their names and with fondness recall certain things about each of them. And I'm sure that these students will, and those who fill these buildings can do the same. Don't get me wrong, there were some teachers where there were challenges. That's the case in every profession. Whether it was in English class or in industrial arts class where I made those wooden clocks that I thought I was going to make millions with, those teachers helped pave the way to where I am now. And it's also my gut feeling that you're doing the same with the students that you have in your classrooms. One of my favorite songs or hymns, I'm not quite sure which it is and I'm not going to sing it either. But it's along the lines of go make a difference, you can make a difference, we can make a difference. And I love this mantra because it genuinely speaks to what it is that I do and what it is that each of you do. I love my work as a funeral director. I love it. It's not work. Many of you have witnessed firsthand for 7 years when when John and I had a business here in town. The good news is we're back. And we're back to make a difference. My work, our vocation, our passion introduced me, sadly enough, to the West Boys, whom I didn't know were going to be here until I saw the program. I was able to witness firsthand these boys at the time of their dad's death, how they cared for him and how they cared for their mother and for their entire family. And I'm blessed to be able to have the experiences like that where I meet kids from Shrewsbury, also added benefit public school products, who have continued to become shining examples, and I know that in their continued work, they are going to make a difference. Humbly, I confess that one of my passions is writing obituaries. I really do like to write obituaries. A glass of wine helps, but I really do like to write them. And I have the added benefit of having had some really great English teachers who no doubt helped shape my ability to be able to write these obituaries with grammar and the other things, so that when they are read, it tells a wonderful story about that dash. The poet, Linda Ellis, what did you do with that dash from when we were born till when we died? What did we do? And hopefully with what I'm able to write, it beautifully summarizes who that person was. Jane's looking at her watch. She's saying, okay, Jim, you're going beyond the 5 minutes. A few minutes ago, I referenced my brother John. We've been together and there for each other for literally 48 years. Friends, business partners, jokesters. I was his best man and twin brothers. I'm blessed. And we joke because I was the firstborn. Allegedly, there was trouble breathing. And I would later tell people that's because he had his foot in my mouth. But I was with John a couple of years ago when he was diagnosed with a very, very serious cancer on Father's Day. And when those hours were dark, we were there. But with God's grace and blessings, he's cancer-free, healthy. And one of the other differentiating factors now, when you see him, say, John, you look great, but you're heavier than your brother. One of my favorite poets, Anais Nin, said, and then the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. And then the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. So when I was 27, I took my brother John to the Halfway Cafe in Watertown, my mother's native Watertown, to come out to him. Because when I look back in my schooling here in Shrewsbury, I look back, were there any positive out people? And there weren't. But times, thankfully, have changed. And I'm comforted and elated to know that there are various support groups here in the school system for LGBTQ and in the community, Shrewsbury Youth Family Services. My being gay is only one facet of the person who I am. And while in part it defines me and also differentiates me one more time from my brother John, there's nothing that I would do to change it. Nothing. I've run 13 marathons, raised over $200,000 for various charities, amongst one of my favorite Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services, established a startup funeral home, the likes of which the communities have never seen. And in my own way, I hope to have made Shrewsbury a better place to live. I'm thankful for public school systems like Shrewsbury and the people who staff it, administrators, teachers, everyone. And I say that especially because, as a practicing Catholic, our Bishop, McManus, now supports and leads the President's initiative to allow Catholic schools to discriminate against LGBT staff. And it's mind-boggling in this day and age that we're even talking about this, and the hypocrisy that comes from these leaders. God gave the bishop a voice in a pulpit, and he gave me one today as well, and he gives each of you one every single day of your lives to become instruments of change. It's my only hope that the people that staff the Shrewsbury school system, you will continue in your vocations, all the while recognizing those who might be struggling with the directions that life takes them, not just with identity. Help them realize that the risk to remain tight in a bud is far greater than it is to become a beautiful bud. Help them make a difference, and continue to do your life's passion in the wonderful God-given ways that you've been blessed with. Go make a difference. You can make a difference. We can make a difference. Regardless of the color of our skin, who we choose to friend or love, we can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Now I'd like to introduce everyone to David Chapin, class of 2002. David, thank you for being here.
That's a much bigger picture of myself than I expected. I guess first and foremost, I want to thank all the teachers, all the alumni, thank all of the administrators just for the work that you do. Prior to going into the position that I'm in now, into the career that I was in, I wanted to be an English teacher. But I didn't think that they got the amount of appreciation for all the efforts that they do. So just a round of applause for all you administrators and teachers, because we really appreciate what you do. So for those of you that don't know me, I am a graduate of 2002. So four siblings of mine have gone through Shrewsbury High School. We moved here from Liberia when I was 4 years old to escape civil war. And we moved around a lot growing up. So when we moved here in '98, when I was a freshman at the old high school, it was great to kind of have a place to call home. And during that experience here in Shrewsbury, through sports, through engagement with teachers, with Dr. Gudikant or PJ O'Connell, Jay Costa, you really found people that I believe believed in you and spent time really trying to nurture your gifts and talents. And I think that was the most focal point in just my maturing as a student. So I ended up graduating after leaving here and going to Worcester State College. And for those of you who do know me, I was almost a gym rat for basketball. So I spent a lot of my time in the gym playing. And that's what I did my freshman year of college. I played only basketball, traveled, didn't do very well at Worcester State my first year. So took time off, went back to school later on after bartending for several years, and went to Sigmund Community College because I felt that the cost of school, as far as higher education, was getting out of whack. So I considered when my break even was going to be. And this is a 23-year-old going back to college. So it's much different than an 18-year-old going to school and getting a massive degree or liability. So, I mean, that was important to me because I looked at it. I mean, right now I co-manage a wealth management team at Morgan Stanley. We manage close to probably $300 million for families and organizations. So the old adage of that you have to go to a major university in order to get to where you want to go is very wrong. Yeah. Clearly, there's a good amount of effort and diligence that goes into it, but the recommendation that I'm going to leave with you guys, which seems strange coming from me to recommend to you what to do with, but it really helped me. What it did was I was listening to a podcast, and a gentleman was talking to his daughter about picking a career. And what he recommended to her was to do essentially a SWOT analysis of herself and determine what she innately was good at that she didn't really have to try to do. It was just kind of built in her fabric. One, identify that. Two, look at what she really loved to do and see if there was a crossover, right? Because at the end of the day, every job is going to be hard. So if you enjoy students, you enjoy helping them when it's not as great as you would like it to be, you can kind of fall back on and say, these are the things that really, really matter to me. I mean, I do it in my dating relationships, right? I'm like, these are my deal breakers. And as long as these things consistent, then when things are up or down, I know I can go back I can go back and know that these are what matter to me. The third thing was identifying what the world needs and would pay you for, right? There's a lot of things that the world needs that they're not willing to pay for. But if you're lucky enough to identify an area where it hits on all three or even 2 to 3, I think that's great guidance for young, impressionable students that don't really know what they want to do. I had a conversation with my younger sister, Jasmine Chapin, who graduated here, and now she is a junior at Northeastern, and she's majoring in computer science and game design. It blows my mind, the things that she's able to do with technology. But she was concerned because she felt as though she was lacking some of the other students in just aptitude. And there was a little bit of learning curve. And I asked her, I said, before you switch majors, why did you go into this field? Like, what is it that drove you through? And is it strong enough or bedrocked enough that you can kind of stay and kind of weather the storm? And after that conversation, she looked at me cross-eyed and said, you're just, my older brother trying to give me advice like you always do. But she decided to stay in the career and she's a junior now. She's doing really well doing her co-op. And it just really resonated with me, right? Because I look at what I do now with the different families, and we help them sift through the noise. Right? There's so much social media, there's tweets, there are phone calls from elected officials calling in. There's just so much that it's hard to really focus oftentimes on what you're trying to do. And I think that as teachers and administrators, when you can have those conversations where it really boils down to what exactly is this child trying to accomplish down the road. They may not necessarily know, but everyone's gifted with talents and things that they are really kind of created or manifested in them. So that would be the one thing, and I'm sure you might probably already doing it, but it's something that I wished that when I was younger, that was kind of that conversation I had, because I wanted to play in the NBA. Wasn't really tall enough for that. And once I got past that, I knew that helping people, I knew that having a change every single day in my puzzles and things that I work on, and knowing that I wanted to eventually be successful enough to pay back my parents for all the money I borrowed. Those are the things that I knew that as long as I kind of stayed in line with that would really work out. So once again, I really thank everyone here for coming in this morning. I thank you for allowing me to speak to you, and I hope everyone has a great rest of the summer, and cheers to you guys.
Thank you, David, very much. And before I introduce our next speaker, I failed to mention that Amy Clowder and Donna Manzoli worked hard to put together inside the programs the famous circle, square, triangle reflection tool. So if you have thoughts as speakers are speaking, or if you want to do this when they're done, would love your feedback. We're going to ask that you leave these outside the door in a basket. But I also don't want them to take away from or distract you from being present right here in this moment on August 30th, listening to some very special people. So thank you, and welcome, Sarah.
That was good timing. Now everyone's going to take notes on what I have to say. So my name is Sarah Hopkins.
Oh. That's still a David. I got to do a little better here with my
Yeah.
There we go.
I am a 2010 graduate of Shrewsbury Public Schools, and I am currently in my third year as a clinical psychology doctoral graduate student. I'm getting my PhD in clinical psychology right now from Suffolk University. I live in Cambridge with my partner, who was an 2009 graduate, Michael Eason. So high school love sometimes lasts. So thank you again for having me today. I guess to start with something that left a positive impact, kind of lasting on me, when thinking about that question that Jane posed, I was reminded of one time in particular, my senior year of high school. I had applied to college, early decision. I knew where I wanted to go, and it ended up being the right choice. But I was having a lot of doubts, and it was like the day after I sent in that binding early decision offer. And I rushed down to the guidance office and into my guidance counselor's room, and I was like, I'm not sure if I made the right decision at all. I'm regretting this. I don't know what to do. And she had to go to a meeting, but she turned on Send Me On My Way by Rusted Root on her computer and told me to take all the time I needed and left. And that experience, that moment kind of speaks to the unconditional positive regard and support that I felt from so many teachers and administrators throughout my time at Shrewsbury. It could have been a guidance counselor, it could have been a teacher, it could have been anybody, but it was this glimpse of somebody showing me that they were also human and that they had these human qualities that I was really able to connect with. And that really, for me, is what sticks, when teachers can show students that they're humans too, and that they have difficulties and doubts and troubles, but we're all kind of trying to find our way. So that was enhancing that and bringing that out more with the students that you work with, I think, is only going to bring good things. And so when Jane was asking about advice, or kind of in hindsight, what would have enhanced my experience, I immediately thought about bringing in the more of students' experiences and backgrounds and their lives into the classroom. So I'm kind of getting at, I guess, diversity, but not in the one-dimensional way that we think about it oftentimes, as just race or ethnicity. Diversity is a multidimensional construct. There are like 12 different ways that people can identify: sexual orientation, gender, native language, just to name a few. And I think providing more space for conversations about differences between students is only going to promote inclusive and respectful behavior. And it's really going to bode well for sending students into the real world after they're done at Shrewsbury. I think I've been really lucky to now in my current studies be able to do a lot of work and research and kind of academic exploration about the differences in diversity. but that can start early, and I think that there's no reason that it can't start in one's education here at Shrewsbury. Also thinking about when we talk about identity, how we identify it can be either like a privileged or a marginalized status. People can have multiple privileged statuses and multiple marginalized statuses. And acknowledging that, I think, in a sensitive way would be really important in the classroom. And when I was here, I think the lack of conversation about it gave me the false impression that everybody else's lives were just like mine, and that's not true at all. And so providing space for those conversations will, I think, only bring the student body closer together in many ways. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. At this time, I'd like to introduce everyone to Vinay Malley Akal. Vinay is taking time out of a very busy med school experience to be with us this morning, so thank you.
All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for coming in this morning and inviting me back to speak and to share my story. So my name is Vinay Malley Akal, and I'm a graduate of the SHS class of 2012, and I'm currently pursuing an MD as a fourth-year medical student at UMass Medical School. So my experience with the Shrewsbury school system began in the 5th grade at Sherwood Middle School. Since that time, I would say my experience in the Shrewsbury school system was generally positive. I had some excellent teachers and mentors along the way who helped pave the way for where I am currently. Thinking back on these formative years, I think high school was a significant contributor to my perseverance in college and beyond. I can still remember balancing what was, at the time, a significant course load with sports and other extracurricular activities. It was the first time in my life where I really felt challenged, not just as a student, but as a person. I recall catching that 6:30 a.m. bus, sitting through a full day of classes, soccer practice, track meets that would often end around 8 or 9 p.m., then having to do homework, study for exams, write articles for the school paper, before finally getting to bed around 1 or 2 a.m., only to get up and do it all again. In some ways, I found high school to be more demanding than college because of this rigid schedule. In the end, however, I do believe I was better off because of this rigor, as it allowed me to hone my time management skills and to take on greater responsibilities in college. Some of the positive experiences I had during this time involved teachers who were cognizant of this time crunch and who made themselves available for tutoring and mentoring after hours. This facilitated greater learning, reinforcement of concepts that aren't always possible in the allotted 50-minute time slot during the day, especially when sleep-deprived. I was also appreciative of teachers who were selective in their assignments, emphasizing quality and true learning in place of busy work. So, in terms of advice to strengthen the education for current high school students, I think greater strides should be made to respect different learning styles, as it can be difficult to fully grasp a lecture in one 50-minute sitting, especially when there are 7 to 8 other periods during the day that are all vying for your attention. One strategy that we use in medical school is lecture capture, where each lecture is recorded and available to view online. While I'm not sure how feasible this would be for high school, perhaps providing a consolidated outline of that day's classroom topic for students to take home would help reinforce these concepts and to allow for self-paced learning. Going along with this, I think peer tutoring can be an invaluable asset, as Ruby Lee stated earlier, for students. Peers often teach things simply and connect with other students in ways that sometimes teachers cannot. I think this should be emphasized and perhaps incentivized. Lastly, I think longitudinal mentoring can be of great benefit to current high school students. Each underclassman could be paired with an upperclassman to help with the transition into high school, answering questions about test prep, college applications, and offering general advice. Additionally, this mentoring could extend into the SHS alumni network, where students could be able to reach out to alumni in fields in which they're interested, and alumni could provide advice relevant to that field. So overall, thank you again for inviting me back to talk and give some advice, and I hope you all have an excellent summer and a great school year. Thank you.
At this time, thank you, Vinay. I'd like to thank Vinay and welcome Hannah Hopkins.
Good morning, everybody. So as Jane just said, my name is Hannah Hopkins. I'm a 2014 graduate of SHS. Currently, I am working at Deloitte as an IT consultant. So thank you for having me here today. In addition to working at Deloitte, I still create art, I still advocate for environmental sustainability, I still have a lot of interests. Looking back on my time in the Shrewsbury school system, I felt like this was my playground, my oyster. Arguably, I had too much fun here. I felt like it was a very individualized experience. I felt like I was trusted, and it was a collaborative effort. I owe this trust and support to you all, my teachers, my counselors, administration, my family. My sister Sarah just spoke a couple minutes ago, and if you know me, you know that she is my superstar. So rather than being told, this is what you need to do when I was here, and this is how things are done, I felt like it was more a conversation around, this is what I wanted to do. And I would hear the words, okay, well, how do we make this happen as a team? So with this, I would hope that Shrewsbury Public Schools can continue to challenge themselves and further make students feel this individualized experience. Although realistically, students can't do it all. Supporting kids on what they're passionate about, how they express themselves, and what they really want to do and what they're interested in is so important. Emphasizing the phrase, how can we make this happen, rather than defaulting to, it's never been done before, or it's impossible, to me, I think is so important. That's my spiel.
Thank you, Hannah. At this time, I'd like to welcome Michael West, class of 2015.
Good morning, everyone. There we go. That's a little better. My name is Mike West, and I'm a graduate of class of 2015 from Shrewsbury High School, Mr. Nevada's first class, and its best. I had the pleasure of going through Shrewsbury Public Schools and had a wonderful experience, but it wasn't just because of me, it was because of everyone here. I learned a lot of life lessons from the Shrewsbury Public Schools in high school, but it wasn't because of me, it was because of everyone. I, throughout high school, went through ALS with my family, which was a neurodegenerative disease, which was very hard and took a lot of toll on our family. But throughout that journey, I had each and every staff here that taught me the life lessons of perseverance, dedication, and compassion. I could have been a student that everyone wrote off as just another lazy kid who didn't care about class, but instead, each and every person that I came across in the staff of Shrewsbury High, they taught me that, life goes on, it's okay, you persevere. So through that, I became a better person, and I went on to go to UMass Lowell. I'm going to get an MBA, and, everything moves on and it goes better. So, as I talk to you guys today, I just want to let you know that I appreciate everything that Shrewsbury High has done for me and that the public schools have done, and I encourage you to take this compassion and teach other kids what it's like to go through this public school system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. At this time, we have two current seniors, TJ Morgera and Jack Foley, class of 2020, and they are going to share a learning experience and some words of wisdom with all of us, and we're very grateful for being here on their day off today. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
All right, so as Mrs. Lott said, my name is TJ Morgera. I'm a current senior here at SHS, and I'd like to thank all of you for being here today, taking your time out of your day to listen to our stories. So Mrs. Lott told us to pick an impactful experience of our Shrewsbury High School career, and I think the most impactful experience of my career had to be the American Studies final project that I had to put on last year along with Jack. The idea was brought into our head by our teachers, Mr. Brown and Mrs. Steinberg, and without their help, our event could have never been what we imagined. We were told to choose something meaningful to us that could be considered a problem in our world. We settled on cancer, and we decided that we needed to find a solution to that issue. We decided to research all about cancer and statistics and organizations, and we talked to Jack's uncle, who's a doctor, and we decided the best method would be to raise money. We settled on the 1540 Connection, which is a nonprofit from Westboro, Massachusetts, that focuses on the early detection of cancer. We already had several ties to the organization, and we knew it would be a great fit for us. We connected immediately with the entire staff, and from there we ran with it and planned our event very smoothly. In the end, with the help of the members of the 1540 organization, we were able to run our Orange Out Boys Night Lacrosse game, and we absolutely ran with it, and it was an incredible event for both of us.
Hi, I'm Jack Foley. I'm also a senior here, and like TJ said, our event, we were told to choose an issue that meant a lot to us, and cancer seemed fitting for us as it affected both of our lives, and I can honestly say it's the most work I've ever done for a school project. But it really didn't seem like that because TJ and I both love what we were doing, and the work seemed minimal, and I think it's always when you're really doing something you care about, like the work seems very minimal.
So I think if I were to maybe give some advice, it would be to allow for more experiences like Jack and I had, because sometimes kids leaving high school, we don't know what we want to do with our lives. But the experience that we had makes me want to know that I want to be a volunteer and have something to do with 1540 and volunteering for the rest of my life, because it was such an impactful experience for me.
I think it'd be a great opportunity for all students at Shrewsbury High School to have an opportunity to engage in something with the community, like 1540 Connection, like TJ and I were able to do, and get connected with something more than just schoolwork and really make an impact in the community.
That's it for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, TJ and Jack. At this time, we welcome Sofia Payne, also taking her day off to be with us today, class of 2020. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sophia, as Dr. Lazat just said, and my career trajectory is a little shorter than some of the other people here, but I thought I would tell you a bit about how I came to where I am today. But first of all, I want to ask, is anyone here a big Stranger Things fan? Yeah, me too. Stranger Things is one of my favorite shows. And for those of you who don't know, Stranger Things is a TV show. It blew up the internet. It follows a group of kids, well, teens now, and they work together to solve a mystery in their small town of Hopkins, Indiana during the 1980s. There are monsters, there's awkward romance, there's evil Russians. It's a good time. But I think what I love most about Stranger Things is that it gives a voice to socially inept middle school nerds. Because, well, that was me. I didn't have the greatest experience in middle school. I think in the classroom, I was very apt and I had a great time. I think all of our teachers here do a fantastic job making sure that their classrooms are really comfortable settings. But outside of the classroom, I was quite socially awkward. I was studious and I kept my head down in the halls and I stuck to the outskirts of friend groups. I did have plenty of interests. I read fantasy novels, I watched a lot of Dance Moms and 17 seasons of Pokemon anime, but I was terrified of revealing my interests to my peers for fear that I would be laughed at. There was even an entire year where I sat alone every day during lunch, and that's not because my peers didn't invite me to sit with them, but it was more because I didn't feel like I could relate with any of them. Sitting with them made me feel even less included, like nothing more than a charity case. And I'm glad to say the teens in Stranger Things are nothing like I was. They were really comfortable with themselves and they're being geeky and awkward and being themselves in middle school. And I think a lot of why they were able to do that was because of their AV club. So the AV club was for them an extracurricular activity. So every day after school, our 4 protagonists would cram into this dark closet full of recording equipment, and they could take refuge in this fascinating world of audio and visual technology. They could talk about their interests, they could talk about Dungeons and Dragons and walkie-talkies, and they wouldn't get shoved into lockers for being weird, which sometimes they were shoved into lockers. And they had a place that they really belonged. And I'm not saying that an AV club is what Shrewsbury middle schools need, but I think finding a way to make our more intellectual students feel accepted outside of the classroom during what is arguably the worst years of their life could be really revolutionary. And I say this because as an introverted, still quite socially awkward student leader at the high school, I find myself sorely underrepresented. Most of the students rising to high leadership positions are the extroverts, the athletes, the students who don't say, the book was better after the movie. Okay. And this isn't a bad thing by any means, but it's something that keeps happening, and it damages our perspective on issues that maybe are affecting the entire population of the school. And this is happening because our socially inept middle school nerds don't have the same opportunities to feel empowered at a young age. My own trajectory might not have happened if I hadn't found a community where I belonged during middle school. If I hadn't found people and experiences that empowered me through 8th grade speech and debate, I wouldn't have had the confidence to run for student office, speak up in classes, or pick myself up after I failed, which did happen a lot as I entered high school. So my message here today is mostly for our middle schools. I'm not sure how many students now are going through what I did, or if things have drastically changed since I was in middle school. But if we can, I think it's really important to find more ways to make our untalkative students open up a little more. I know starting clubs is not as simple in the middle schools as it is at the high school, but if we can add new interscholastic sports teams, I'm sure there's room for a movie club or a science club. I could even see students from the high school coming down and helping to run these activities for volunteer hours. I'll be graduating next spring, and I want to leave knowing there are more students like me who feel prepared to be leaders. Students who sit quietly with a small group of friends during lunch, but can then come up here and joke about Stranger Things in front of the entire SPS faculty. I want to see the geeks step out of their shells, gain momentum, and I want them to turn student leadership upside down. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. At this time, we will hear from Anthony Kweli, class of 2012. In the program, it says 2002, and I wondered why he looks so young. It's because we had it wrong. He's, in fact, 10 years younger. And he looks great. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you. Good morning. I haven't been this nervous since I spoke at graduation, actually. Growing up was actually a struggle. if I hadn't been blessed with the grandparents that I have now. Around the first or second grade, my parents had gotten divorced, and at that age, it hurt the most. The constant battle from going back and forth to mom's house to dad's house with whatever middle school schoolwork. Teachers were well aware of situations at that point, and what went on in my home life. They actually cared about me as they would with anyone else. That says a lot about a teacher balancing their own school life, home life, as well as what I had going on. So skipping ahead to my high school years, it was like a different world, for me anyways. I was much more mature, and I did the best I could to stay focused with the help of some of the best teachers I could have ever asked for. I was placed on a 504 plan, probably around middle school leading into high school. It was a smaller classroom that gave me a chance to get a better grip on my schoolwork. The teachers in this community have a true passion to help their students that need it, and to easily guide the ones that grasp a better understanding of it. And will do nothing to the best of their ability to see any student succeed. I graduated, got my diploma, and all I wanted to do was work. Many of you may know about my work ethic outside of going to school, as well I was in school with the often tow truck junior year of high school in the parking lot. I didn't end up going to college. And as Jim was saying, you love who you love, but, in my eyes, you go for what you want for. So out of school I was thinking to myself, what was I gonna do with any of the stuff I ever learned in high school, in the real world? College isn't for everyone, and knowing basic life skills, it was going to be a challenge. So thinking about it, why didn't I learn anything about banking or writing a check, balancing simple finances? My grandmother actually taught me how to write my first check, and up until last year, I started doing mobile banking. It's like a new world. I still write a check time to time, but even then, there wasn't a class for it in school. That would probably benefit the most of an introductory class junior year, and then senior year, you get a final grip on it, because like I said before, college isn't for everybody. In the real world, after high school, it's the gateway to life. You don't know where you're going to end up, and if you want to go to work like I did, that's all I've ever done. So with there not being a class for it, college maybe, if you chose that said profession. But what about the students that didn't want to go to college? In my eyes, and maybe others too, but high school, like I said, was the gateway. Not furthering your education isn't a bad thing, but being introduced into some of these skills would benefit a student either way. This is where I think the schools should have an accounting class to show students what it's like to manage their own money or basic finances to whatever life could throw at them. So life after high school is a scary thing because you don't know what you're going to expect. Maybe some students had been taught that stuff at home, or some hadn't been taught it at all. Having basic life skills class could be a great thing about this school. Even without having any of the types of classes in school when I went, I still was taught how to be the responsible and respectful man I am today, and want to thank the ones here at SHS for helping me along the way. Thanks.
Thank you, Anthony. Now we have Jessica Payne. Jessica couldn't decide which photo she wanted to use this morning, so she asked if she could choose a goofy one and another type, a funny one. Instead of course, it's made us smile today. Welcome.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica. In case you didn't know, Sophia and I are twins, although unlike Mr. Heald, we've never switched classes, which is one of my biggest regrets. Okay. So I'm also a senior at Shrewsbury High School, and I've attended Shrewsbury Public Schools for just about my entire life. Since, I'm ancient and have been here for so long, I couldn't be more excited to share with you some of my experiences. I'd like to start off with an anecdote about this period of time in 6th grade where I basically didn't sleep. It wasn't because I was stressed or anything, that's no longer the case, but it was rather because I would lie awake for hours, plotting my world domination in the 6th grade Mesopotamia simulation. Thank you. I was team leader of the Babylons, the uncontested best ancient civilization, and our yellow dot army was slowly pushing its way across the whiteboard projected territory map, gathering resources and conquering our classmates, the Persians and the Phoenicians. The goal was to build the most successful empire, which involved having the most soldiers, also known as dots, the most food and trade goods, the most land, etc. I looked forward to going to school every single day because it was another opportunity to prove my strategic brilliance in the face of seemingly brutal adversity. I know I definitely went way overboard with that simulation, but in case you were wondering, we did win by 2,000 points. But I don't tell you this story to flex, but rather because it's one of my favorite examples of how Shrewsbury Public Schools has successfully utilized interactive learning. The Mesopotamia simulation was amusing and engaging, but at the same time, it taught me facts that I still remember today, like the Phoenicians invented the alphabet. More importantly, it motivated me to want to be in the classroom, to want to stay up all night thinking about, dare I say it, school. I've always believed that the best education system doesn't just teach, but convinces students that there is joy in being taught. It is the desire to keep studying and growing that takes us far in life, that leads us to new discoveries and distant places. Interactive learning is critical because, to put it simply, it makes school fun. It piques students' interest, which leads them to not only focus better and score better on tests, but also to want to continue their education beyond graduation. I know, especially at the middle and high school levels, that it's hard to fit time-consuming activities into packed schedules when teaching curriculum has to be prioritized. However, I guarantee that including just one classroom debate a month or one review game of Kahoot per unit can make a big difference. It breaks up the monotony of lectures and discussions, and students will naturally step up their effort when they're doing things they enjoy. Everyone's favorite Philadelphian, Ben Franklin, once said, "Tell me and I'll forget. Show me and I may remember. Involve me and I learn." So before I leave today, I'd like to share a couple of interactive learning activities I came across on the internet as food for thought. Make a sticky note concept map. Host a quizcussion, a discussion where everyone can only ask questions. Run a live Twitter feed or online forum while watching videos. Have kids go on idea speed dates. Try sketchnoting or sketching a picture to represent notes. The possibilities are quite endless and quite simple. After all, you don't have to go Mesopotamia simulation level complex to do something quite effective. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. At this time, I invite John West to the podium. John is another senior here at the high school this year. Welcome, John.
There we go. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for listening to our stories today. Again, my name is John West. As Ms. Lazat said, I'm a senior here at Shrewsbury High School, and next fall I'll be attending Boston College on a baseball scholarship. Thank you. I only say that because throughout my time as an athlete, I've been a part of many great teams, clubs, and I've made a lot of memories, and with great teammates, friends. I've won a lot of championships here at the high school and things like that, but none of these teams have made an impact on my life the way that the unified basketball team has. I was fortunate enough this fall of my sophomore year, I was introduced to the unified basketball team by a good friend of mine, Declan McSweeney. At first, I didn't know much about it, but as he talked to me about it, it really caught my interest. I have a cousin with special needs, and he's very dear to our family, and we love him. But the unified basketball program, that was what made me so interested in it. But being a part of that has really changed my experience here at Shrewsbury High School. It was great already, but being a part of that has definitely made it very special. I've got to work with kids that normally I wouldn't get a chance to work with, and being an athlete and stuff like that in middle school and high school, you don't really get a chance to collaborate and work with students of intellectual disabilities, and I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity to. My hope for the future in Shrewsbury Public Schools is to introduce and bring about a unified program at all levels of the public school system, whether it's elementary or middle or the junior high school. I think it would be very beneficial to the school community itself, and it brings together students who normally wouldn't get a chance to become friends and make friendships that'll last a lifetime and really make an impact on their lives. So that's my hope, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, John. Our final speaker is currently at UMass. Marley Akal is a sophomore at UMass Amherst, and she is an RA this year. And while she would have loved to be with us this morning, she was unable to be. So she has sent along a video. And
everyone, if my introduction's not already up there, it hasn't been said. My name is Marley, and I'm currently a rising sophomore at UMass Amherst. I'm double majoring in graphic design and marketing, in hopes of doing creative work at a company like Nike or something like that in the future. So the story is still yet to be written, but Shrewsbury Public Schools and Shrewsbury in general has definitely shaped who I am as a woman, and my story and who I am as a person. I think from a very young age, the teachers that saw potential in me were the ones that have really kind of allowed me to write my story the way I wanted it to be. Yeah, and I think when I was young enough, or too young I would say, to kind of see that potential in myself, or it wasn't being fed to me in whatever way, whether that be home or extracurriculars or whatever the case may be. I think there were a lot of teachers that saw potential in me, and for me to grow and always set the bar where it needed to be set in order for me to be the person that they saw or envisioned me to be. And I think I'm definitely, I hope so, or if not close to it, that person that they thought I could be, or hopefully exceeded that. But I think the teachers that have the passion and wanted to be there and loved teaching or loved people or loved students and wanting to see that growth come into fruition were definitely the ones that allowed me to stretch myself in all the best ways. So thank you for that. And I think areas of growth or areas that the system could be stretched would be understanding the background of students and where they come from, and what their home life is like. And I know that there's so many students, and so there's one of you in a room of however many students, and it can be so difficult, but I think that can be super helpful in the communication that you have. And I think for me personally, whether that be me not having my homework done for school and whatever the case may be, or what my home life was like, that definitely shapes how students act at school and how they carry themselves. And I had a single mother raising 4 kids, and she did an awesome job. She worked her hardest, always working multiple jobs. So there was never really a lot of supervision in the sense that she was there doing my homework with me or things like that. So it was kind of for me to figure out for myself, and that has shaped me to be the person I am in the best ways. But I think if you ever have students like that, it's important to understand where they're coming from. And the demographic of Shrewsbury has changed so much since I was in middle school or elementary, or even last year. It's just going to continue to change. So I think it's important to understand that and where they're coming from, because it makes them feel more comfortable. So if I showed up to school the next day with my homework not done, and I would just feel like such a horrible person sitting next to somebody that had their parents help them with their homework, it's important to kind of understand that and work through that stuff. So that's my personal opinion. But Shrewsbury High and Shrewsbury Public Schools in general has shaped me in the best ways to be where I am today in my dorm room at UMass taking this video. So thank you to everyone. Yeah, and I couldn't thank you all enough.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes the speaker part of our program this morning, and I'd like to give another round of applause to these wonderful individuals for being here this morning. Thanks to Kelly McSweeney, we have a gift for each of you, so I'm going to ask you to come on up, and we know that you will put these to good use. So come this way, and then you can go. Everyone else, stay put for a minute. Oh, sure. All right, we're going to do a group photo too. Here you go. Shrewsbury Colonial towels at their best. So at this time, if you would take just a couple of minutes to work on your reflections, would really appreciate that. And I know Amy has sent out directions for the rest of the day. We have, thanks to Staples, every school has been given a banner, and at the top of the banner it states, "At Shrewsbury High School, we believe," and we're asking every staff member to leave one comment over the course of the next week using the labels that are back at your schools on a Sharpie, and we'll keep those comments and your thoughts up for the year. So we're asking you to leave one, sorry Marley, I'm gonna get off here. Okay. Please share one firmly held belief about empowering all learners, thinking about and reflecting on the words that you heard today. You will do that back at your home schools. But for now, we just ask you to sit and reflect, and when you're ready, I know directions have been sent. Amy, do you want to say anything else about them? Transitioning to break and then department meetings. Thank you all again, and have a wonderful day and a great long weekend.